And it's 10 a.m. here in Lagos, Nigeria. Good morning, because that means it's time for Business Morning here on Channels Television. So let's do business. I'm Ini John Mekwa. We start with oil prices. It's edged lower today as investors absorb the bleak outlook for fuel demand, with data pointing to a global manufacturing downturn, just as major crude producers meet this week to determine whether to increase supply. Brent crude futures dropped 24 cents to $99.82 a barrel, while WTI crude futures eased 10 cents to $93.78 a barrel. The slide came after Brent crude futures slumped yesterday to a session low of $99.09 a barrel, their lowest since the 15th of July. The U.S. crude benchmark dropped to as low as $92.42, and that's its weakest since the 14th of July. Recessionary concerns were heightened yesterday as surveys from the United States, from Europe and Asia shows that factories struggled for momentum in July, flagging global demand, and China's strict COVID-19 restrictions slowed production. Meanwhile, the United States has imposed sanctions on Chinese and other firms it said helped to sell tens of millions of dollars in Iranian oil and petrochemical products to East Asia as it seeks to raise pressure on Tehran to curb its nuclear program. Back here in Nigeria, as part of measures to check the trend to pension fraud, the Pension Transitional Arrangement Directorate, the PTAD, says that they are collaborating with anti-graft agencies and other key stakeholders to tackle pension fraud in the country. The executive secretary of the agency, Dr. Chioma Ejikeme, who was speaking at a meeting, explains the rise in complaints of extortion by fraudsters poses serious concerns and calls for the support of all in stemming the tide.
We all will recall that the pension industry has been swarmed with complaints of extortion by fraudsters and phone calls demanding for money in order to weaken computation and payment of outstanding liabilities. Also, the past ineffective and poor management in the industry before the pension reforms put pension management under the defined benefit scheme in bad light. Following these issues, the advent of the pension reforms required that the Directorate have a two-pronged solution. And the first being settling the outstanding pension arrears and sanitizing the monthly payroll management, as well as secondly, curbing fraud within the pension industry. I enjoin all present to avail us of their expertise, proficiency, and knowledge in contributing and sharing constructive ideas and recommendations that will indeed make the time spent here worthwhile and improve the service delivery of the Pension Transitional Arrangement Directorate.
You're still here now. Let's delve into that happening in the global oil space. We have financial derivatives company analyst with us, Bolanle Agbaje, joining us here in the studio. Hi, Bolanle. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to have you. What's happening with oil? Threats of recession.
Yes, the PMI index.
The PMI. Yes. But PMI in Nigeria, according to Stanbic, went up compared to last year. I was surprised when I saw global PMI is down, but the one in Nigeria is up.
Yeah, it's dependent on what your manufacturing, sector is doing. And I'm sure, for the past few months, the manufacturing sector in Nigeria has tried, even with all what's going on in the economy, to rise up above the challenges. But obviously, in other parts of the world, we're seeing the PMI index actually decline.
Especially in Asia.
Yes, and obviously you have the COVID situation, you have the lockdowns. And this was the same situation we had in 2020 as well. And obviously, that is obviously affecting the demand, or the demand pressure for oil prices.
I guess it's even worse now because because of the war, the supply chain disruption, and all that.
But at the same time, usually before an OPEC meeting, you either have a situation where oil prices either go up or go down, and it's just because, you know, investors are trying to anticipate what, you know, OPEC Plus members would be doing. And at this time, obviously, we expect like a moderate increase in output, and that's just because we're seeing this situation in Asia, Europe, and the US as well. So I'm sure they will take that into consideration. We don't expect any significant increase in output for September.
Yeah, I know that President Biden has been trying to convince Saudi Arabia to get them to boost supply, but everybody has a limit, I think.
Yeah, and also because the IMF, the World Bank, so many agencies have highlighted, you know, the risk of a global recession happening. And if you have those risks looming, I don't think it will make sense for the OPEC Plus members to actually increase output, because at some point, by the time demand falls below what, you know, they had expected or forecasted, it would definitely hinder, you know, oil prices even much further.
And you know, even in the US, getting investment into the oil sector now is difficult.
It's very,
Investors
very
are deciding to hold back and just watch
because
and see.
you have a situation where you have high interest rates, you have high inflationary environment. It's not really favorable for such investments at the moment. It's going to be very expensive.
But there's still windfall for these oil companies. BP has just released 3 times the profits of last year.
Yes, of course, because the change in oil prices has been significant. So you definitely expect, you know, those that have already invested or had invested in the past would benefit definitely from it. And it just calls to question why, you know, Nigeria is still not benefiting from this increases in oil prices.
Honestly, that's a sour spot.
Yes, it's definitely going to be affecting our exchange rates
and our excess crude
account, you know, and also the fact that, you know, there is just no money, no dollar coming into the country at the moment. I think we saw an appreciation of the exchange rates as at
yesterday.
Yes.
I don't know if it's gone back. I think you guys are predicting that by the end of the week it will be back. Was it artificial? Was it real?
No, I'm sure it was real in the sense that, you know, any small changes in the markets, I'm sure there was maybe an increased release or releasing the amount of dollars in the market. But we do expect that, you know, this particular price would go down, depreciate back to about 700 naira.
When we recorded a dip in the external reserve, I mean, some people had said that it was the CBN
releasing,
releasing that
whenever
into
you
the
have
markets.
A situation where the reserves actually falls, it means that they've pulled, you know, some money out and they've probably used it to satisfy the demand for dollars.
Maybe that's why we saw that little bit of...
Yes, definitely.
Wow, I just hope, I mean, we can do the right thing. But we see supermarkets switching to local products.
Yes,
that's one right thing.
Yes, I would call that forced import substitution in any sense, because it's a situation where their hands are tied. They have no choice.
Let's continue tightening these hands.
Yes, but
because that's good for us. It's good for the naira. It's good for the economy.
Yes, ordinarily it's good. All things equal, it's good. But in any case, if you have a situation where you're seeing increased demand for local products, but then you're not seeing that support from the government, and the business environment has not been eased, it's not going to translate into, you know, higher economic growth. Everything has to work hand in hand. So it's best for the government to take advantage of this situation. Like, you're seeing the price of coffee, for example, increasing significantly. And Nigeria is obviously one of the coffee producers in Africa, but this hasn't, you know, increased from the time when, you know, we hadn't really focused on oil. But obviously more of that to come in the next, the afternoon segment.
I think there was, exactly. I think there was a new variety of coffee then and all that. I wonder if we're really boosting that.
I think the major variety that Nigeria produces will be Robusta, although there is increasing production of Arabica as well. But generally, coffee production within Nigeria is facing a lot of challenges. A lot of the farmers are old, you know, so you don't have new entrants into that market. And some of the farmers also complain about the soil texture. It's not necessarily favorable. There are no nutrients, you know, and all of this requires significant amount of investment. There's no support in that space, and I don't think, you know, without that support, I don't think any private individual
And now
will
the
be
government
interested.
is broke, so where will the supports come from?
Exactly. So it's a terrible situation for us.
And And still talking about cocoa, we have Ghana regulator, cocoa board.
Yes, yes. So, you know, a lot of the farmers in Ghana and Ivory Coast have complained about the fact that they're actually not benefiting from, you know, the increase in cocoa prices. And at some point, a few years back, I think before COVID, we had seen a situation where they created a price floor for, you know, the cocoa prices in such a way that these prices don't fall beyond a certain level, so that the farmers can actually...
They peg the price.
Yeah, so the farmers can actually benefit. But I don't think this has affected or improved the living standards of these farmers. So all of that they're doing is just trying to make sure that the prices that the cocoa are being sold for, the farmers actually benefit.
That reminds me of a scenario that I think here in Nigeria, the government tried to stop a direct communication between the foreigners and I think it was the miners in our own situation, so that they are not exploited.
Yes.
But then the introduction of middlemen can also be a problem.
It can also be a problem because when you introduce middlemen, you're obviously increasing the prices as well. And most times what happens is the middlemen try to take most of the profit because obviously transporting or trying to get the particular product from the farmers, you know, from the soil to the final consumers is actually quite expensive. So they try to, you know, benefit from it and take most of the profit out of it.
And then we have this good news from the war, at least.
Yes.
The first ship left yesterday from Odessa.
Yes.
I mean, I was so relieved because even the day after the agreement, there was an attack. And then I think 2 days after, there was another attack. So we're like, is this really going to work?
So it's extremely good news for us in the sense that I think that particular shipment contains about 26,000 metric tons of corn.
Yes.
So at least, you know, it's a step in the right direction. The price of corn, by the time it reaches, you know, the destination, we do hope that it definitely brings down...
Do we know the destination, though?
We're not... I don't think we're really sure of what but it will definitely go to Europe for the bulk of it. And, you know, that should obviously bring down the global price of
Isn't that being too expectant too soon?
Well, they've mentioned that they obviously have 16 vessels that are waiting
in 120 days. The agreement is for 3 months.
Yeah, so I'm sure that it's something that they would push for. And also they're waiting to obviously sign contracts for more vessels to be moved from Ukraine to other parts of the world. So I think it's something we have to... The thing about, you know, countries like that, it's just the war that had prevented, you know, that. Once that's risk is out of the way, or you know, Russia has agreed not to hinder, you know, the movements of these vessels, then I don't think the government will do all it can to support.
Yeah, because they also
need it. They need the forex as well.
Yeah, so they need it. But you know, they lost it. I think they call him a chief grainer or something like that yesterday. That was killed.
Yes.
The first day that
well, you know, all of that is bad news for the particular products. But at the same time, you know, in the Western world, they don't allow things like that, you know, lock them down for so long. I'm sure they'll definitely find, you know, new people to more or less boost the production of that particular product.
Yeah, I think Ukraine is very determined because
they're extremely determined.
Yeah, they've had a lot of setback. If they were to follow some of those setbacks, the attacks and things like that, I don't think the ship would have left yesterday.
And you'll be surprised, once all of this dies down, it would only take them a few months to a year to actually get their country back up, and that's just what they do.
But the process is still really long because they have to check. I mean, Russia is very suspicious of everything.
Yes.
Check for weapons in the grains. I saw some pictures of how they were checking for weapons in the grains to make sure that nothing is being shipped.
Yes.
And then they have to avoid the mines on the Black Sea, so they have to take another route and things like that.
It's a very sad situation where we are. We don't know when the war would actually stop. Russia seems resilient when it comes to, you know, pushing for this war to keep going on. But all we can do as Nigerians is just keep our fingers crossed. We have no, you know, say or any input in what happens. All we just have to do is take advantage of the little changes that we can get, the little positive changes that we can get from both countries.
Yeah, it would be nice if we could really dive in, and do a lot of planting, at least have a
But
plan that is being implemented, and
the existing, farmers, the existing value chain that is already there in Nigeria would probably take advantage of this increased demand from supermarkets, from different consumers around the world, around the country. So we just have to hope that, at least we can more or less get a bit of, economic growth from this increased demand.
I think one thing to celebrate is the supermarket switching to local products. And
yes,
I do hope that it stays.
And I do hope that we can actually match the quality that that they're demanding.
No, that's another story.
Yes.
Then we also see that sugar stocks are up.
Yes, sugar stocks are up. You have the increased demand in India. You have the increased supply as well in major of the high-producing countries. So obviously that has translated to increase in sugar stock. But what that means is whenever you have increase in supply of sugar, we do expect that the prices, drop. And
where are we in the exports?
For sugar, I think we're there, and we have potential to increase.
Always have potential.
We always have potential, but I think in Africa we should be one of the top 5. And also, you have the fact that Dangote is doing so much to increase production of sugar to match, and obviously he's doing a lot with the quality of sugar, and also the fact that Nigerians actually support, the consumption of Dangote sugar is something that
That's another local product.
That's another local product. You see it everywhere. I think everyone actually is comfortable with consuming Dangote sugar.
I think if the quality of local products are there, Nigerians will actually just,
yes, and also more importantly,
because personally, I try when I go to supermarket these days, I try to do the locals. I mean, we can't just come and talk and not do anything about it. I go to supermarket, I try to tell myself, do the locals, at least do your little quota. It might not be so much, but you never can tell.
So you're one of the few supportive civilians in any sense.
I believe you are too.
Yes, I am actually. But for me, it's also about the quality. You don't want to be consuming what is not up to par when it comes to quality. I think that's where I draw the line. But for those that have actually been able to match that quality, like I have no problem consuming Dangote sugar, and it's he has been able to meet the quality, but at the same time, it required significant amount of investment, in technology, in the value chain that would actually match up to this quality.
Yeah, and then you still have the operational cost that the
manufacturers
and
which is continuously increasing.
Where is diesel these days?
Well, diesel, I think it's still about almost 800 naira per liter, but it hasn't changed or moved. You have some. I think it doesn't go below 780. These days. But it seems like people have stopped talking about it.
Exactly, that's what I wanted to say. Manufacturers seem to have adjusted the price in the high cost.
Yes, one thing Nigerians do well is more or less complain in the meantime and then adjust and keep it moving.
And keep it moving. We never give up. Very resilient.
Yes, we are.
All right, Bolanle Agbaje, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. We do hope to have at least a bit more good news.
Yes.
And we do hope it happens. And I guess we also have to speak to the Standards Organization of Nigeria.
Yes, definitely.
Standards Organization of Nigeria, please.
Make it easy.
Make it easy for us to switch to Nigeria-made products. We really want to save this Naira. So if we have good quality products, more Nigerians will switch to locally made products, and then there will be less demand for Forex, and the Naira will have a bit more strength. So please do help us out there. Thank you so much for being on the show this morning.
Thank you for having me.
We'll take a break now. When we come back after that break, well, a topic that is not a happy one, but we have to deal with it. Find out what it is after the break. This is Business Morning on Channels Television. You're welcome back. The Trans-Niger pipeline, a major pipeline capable of transporting about 180,000 barrels of crude per day, has been moribund since mid-June, and that's because of theft. Even though the pipeline is yet to be formally shut down. In June, Mr. Gbenga Komolafe, the Chief Executive Officer of Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, said that Nigeria lost at least $1 billion in the first quarter of this year because of oil thefts. According to him, an unusual level of thefts estimated at a daily average of 103,000 barrels recorded last year had grown to 120,000 barrels in the first quarter of this year. of course, the country is losing. And that's why we had that conversation last week about the excess crude accounts that has been depleted because nothing seems to be going in there. Well, let's delve into that now with Noel Okwedi, Senior Energy Analyst with STARS. Hi, Noel. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, sorry about your name. I hope I got it. Okwedi.
Noel Okwedi.
Okwedi. Thank you so much. Noel Okwedi. All right, so help us to understand the picture with this Nigeria pipeline that is dry. What is that?
Okay, so the Trans-Niger pipeline, TNP, is a pipeline owned by Shell, and it's one of the major pipelines that Nigeria owns. It transports 180,000 barrels per day, and it has about 150 tap points. So tap points are like where you can divert the flow of crude to another pipeline. It's for operators. But now, people that steal oil have started using those tap points to divert crude for their own means. And by the time it gets to the export terminal where it's supposed to be exported out of Nigeria, there's nothing left. And so that's why we're saying that the pipeline has basically dried up. So operators that are transporting their oil through that pipeline are not getting value for their oil anymore. And right now it's still open, but it will soon be shut down. And that's what we're dealing with right now.
Okay, it's still open, but obviously not functional from what you have said.
Yes, exactly. Not functional.
So those points where you say it's supposed to serve, is there no way it can be locked or something?
Well, if you lock it, then that reduces how much oil it's transporting. So it starts from somewhere in River State and terminates at Bonny Terminal where it's exported from. So different companies or different operators and producers along the line can put in their oil and then it gets to Bonny Terminal. But if you start shutting down those tap points, it just reduces the operations of the pipeline and renders it ineffective. But that's where we've gotten to right now because the theft is just unimaginable.
Yeah, and we keep hearing the government talking about efforts to curb oil theft. And we've also had conversation as to stealing of oil. It's not a mere man's job. So you need to be a professional. You need to have idea and skills in that line to be able to do that. Should we be suspecting, compromise from within the system?
Exactly. That's the thing about oil theft, especially at this scale where you're stealing hundreds of thousands of barrels
120,000 barrels a day. That's a lot.
Exactly. That's a lot. And it's not something that any ordinary person can just do. And even if they could, they had the skills. Getting that oil out of Nigeria is not something that anyone can just do because that level of theft is being exported. So that oil is not just within Nigeria or being illegally refined as some of the barrels that are stolen are. Some of this oil is actually exported illegally. It's getting on our waterways, getting on ships, and getting out of Nigeria. And people are earning money from this. So at this level, it just does not make sense that people with means and people in authority are not aware or even actively involved.
So maybe we're talking of the will, the political will. I think that's the way we like to call it in Nigeria. Because, I mean, they can't be hidden. They're not ghosts.
Exactly. I'm sure there are people that people know, and you might even be surprised if we hear the names of these people. So, yeah, the level of theft is just not something that ordinary Nigerian citizens can carry out on their own.
And then they said one of the motivation for this theft, as you have mentioned, that most of this stolen oil is sent outside the country, is because when we look at our neighboring countries, the prices, the price there seems to be higher than what it costs in Nigeria. So because of that, there's a motivation. Once you can just get it out of Nigeria, then you get a higher price for it.
So that applies to petrol. So that's what happens with petrol. But with oil prices are determined internationally. So whatever, it depends on the grade of oil that you're selling. But for petrol, that's definitely the case. So because in Nigeria, we have a subsidy where we're paying 175 now, naira per liter. And in neighboring countries, they're paying as high as 400 to 500 naira. Obviously, there will always be that incentive for people to smuggle petrol out of Nigeria. But for oil, oil prices are determined internationally by forces of demand and supply. So that motive, but the motive is also there because right now oil prices are high everywhere. So, like you said in the news briefing, oil prices have been above $100 per barrel since about March when the Russia-Ukraine war started. So there's that higher motive for theft because people that are stealing know that they can export it and get prices as high as $100 per barrel for each barrel of oil that they are selling.
Mm. And also with this scenario now, is there any hope for our excess crude accounts?
Yes. So the excess crude account is supposed to be the difference between the budgeted price of oil and the real price of oil. So the budgeted price of oil is currently about
65.
$74 per barrel. And the real price, like we've said, is over $100 per barrel. But the problem there is that our production, like we said, because of theft, is so low that we're not realizing those gains. So right now, with oil prices above $100, we're supposed to be saving more, saving our excess crude earnings. But just because of that production shortage, we're not seeing that impact. And for hopes for the future, well, we just need to deal with theft. That's the truth. We need to deal with it because it's ruining a lot of things for the country, from our revenue earnings to even state earnings. Because our oil revenue is a major source of revenue for states to pay salaries, carry out capital projects. Even the ASU strike is still going on because there's a money problem where the government can't meet the ASU's demands. So we really need as much money as we can get right now.
Yeah, we need as much money as we can get. Then there's the issue with Seplat that has diverted production to the Amope Focado system, which is mostly underground. Why and what impacts should we expect from this?
Yeah, so Seplat is Nigeria's largest indigenous oil company, and they had issues with a pipeline that they were using before. They had higher than planned downtimes. What that means is that pipelines usually have times that they're supposed to be maintained, but because of theft and vandalism, the pipeline was down for longer than it should have been. And in Q1 2022, Seplat actually recorded lower oil production because of those downtimes. Even though their revenues increased by about 70%, that was just because of price. In terms of their actual production, that actually dropped between Q1 2021 and Q1 2022. So to prevent that, they've had to move their production to another pipeline, the Amope pipeline. And because that pipeline is mostly underground, the hope is that it won't be as accessible to vandals and for people to tap in and steal. So they'll be able to avoid those higher than planned downtimes and also keep their level of production stable.
So with all of this now on this not so friendly looking environment, we have some local players trying to get into the system, oil fields being allotted. Some international, I think some IOCs have left the scene also, and we're supposed to be celebrating the involvement of locals. But can they handle these challenges that we see? Will they be able to make profits and stay in business?
Yes, that's a big factor. So the marginal oil field rounds that were just concluded, we saw about 57 licenses being offered. And the thing about the marginal field licenses is that marginal fields on their own, they don't produce that much oil. So they produce at most like 10,000 barrels per day. For these companies to actually get financing to even produce the oil is another hurdle that they have to go through. And then you now have this added issue of vandalism and theft that they have to deal with. I think that any company that is able to make it through will really be a strong company because it's really not an easy time to operate in the Nigerian upstream market. And also all these issues of vandalism and theft just scare away investors. Like you said, IOCs have left, are trying to leave. They're actively like selling their assets and divesting from Nigeria's onshore market. So for these companies coming in, it's going to be hard, number one, for them to get financing to invest and actually extract the oil from the fields that they've won, and then even to deal with to get, because you also need financing to get, like for Seplat, for example, that we just said is diverting to another pipeline. That's money that they're spending to sign new contracts and divert their routes from their current route. That's going to cost money. So for these new oil companies that are coming in or trying to get into the market, it's not going to be an easy one for them at all.
So while we celebrate them, I guess they should know what's lying ahead for them.
Exactly. Exactly.
But the PIA doesn't help in this, in dealing with this oil theft. The PIA doesn't.
Okay, so the PIA deals with theft in an indirect way. So it says that's why the host community bill is so key there, because the PIA kind of assumes that host communities are the reason why theft is so rampant. So the assumption is that when the host community fund comes in, the host communities will now have a source of income that will prevent them or remove that incentive for them to steal and vandalize oil equipment. But like we've just discussed, the kind of theft that we're seeing, I doubt that any host community, any member of any host community has the resources to carry out this level of theft and then export oil to other countries and earn revenue for it. Like that's like another country. That's actually like a country's operations that we're putting on a community, and that's not possible. So the effectiveness of the PIA is in dealing with oil theft is shortened because of this. I don't know if it's an oversight, but yeah, that's just the situation there.
Yeah, well, guess this is another hurdle we have to, face in the country if we want to move on and deal with our excess crude accounts or even make the most of the potential in the oil sector. Thank you so much, Noel Okwedi, Senior Energy Analyst with STAIRS. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's move over to the markets now, beginning with the equities market. Yesterday was just one day, and we celebrated almost 1.5% increase in the all share index, and then we were down yesterday. It opened the first day of the first month bearish. Investors sold off Bois Cement, lost more than about 10%, and the all share index declined by 0.83 to close at 49,950.30. Losing that 50,000 level there. Accordingly, the month-to-date and year-to-date returns printed 0.8 and plus 16.9. And there we see the volume was in red, declined by 30.9% to 176.05 million, valued at 2.27 billion naira. Deals were in red, but I tell you that's more of sell-off, so almost 5,000 deals yesterday. GT Coal was the most traded by volume. The banking sector still, still catches the eye of investors. Yesterday, we see that GTCO, Zenith Bank, and Access were the most top trades yesterday. And so you see the banking counter was in the positive yesterday, 0.19%. Consumer goods was down. Industrial goods, more than 4%. That's that Bois Cement we talked about. Insurance was down. Oil and gas was flat yesterday. As measured by market breadth, market sentiment was positive as 18 tickers gained relative to 13 losers. Carverton and Courtville recorded the most significant gains of the day, while, as we said earlier, Bois Cement was the top loser for the day yesterday. Yeah, there you go. Top trades, GTCO, Zenith Bank, and Access Co. But it was a mix there. GTCO gained, Access Co lost yesterday, but they brought the counter to a positive close at the close of trade. Now let's go to the fixed income market and the money market and see what happened yesterday. The overnight lending rate contracted by 450 basis points to 10.5% in the absence of any significant inflows into the system. The Treasury bill secondary market traded with mixed sentiment, but it was bullish as the average yield contracted by 1 basis point to 7.7%. Across the curve, the average yield contracted by 1 basis point in the short, 1 basis point in the mid, and that's due to buying interest on the 10 tenure. There, the OMO, we saw that there were only 3 deals valued at just about 3 billion naira yesterday. All right, I think we'll take a break now. When we come back from that break, we'll head to London and find out what's going on with Juliana. So stay with us. This is Business Morning on Channels Television. Yeah, welcome back. Well, just before we head to London, let's do a little bit of talk on the equities market. We have Mr. Rotimi Fakayejo joining us now. Mr. Fakayejo, good morning. What are you guys doing to the market? On Friday, we are 1.5% up, and then the very next day, we are 1% down. What's going on?
Well, what we've seen is not far-fetched because at a time like this, we're seeing more and more of this. The index will still be impaired more solely because when each of the 6 most capitalized stocks take a swipe on the market, then definitely everybody will feel the heat. I'm talking in the likes of Airtel, MTN, Nestle, Boa Cement, Dangote Cement, and Seplat. So when any of these ones actually take a swipe on the market, we're going to see what we have been seeing. And then we've seen that happen for MTN. It rebounded a little. We've seen that for Nestle. We are yet to see for Airtel. We've seen for Boa Cement yesterday. And definitely we're going to get that swipe from each and every one of them. But be that as it may, just like our former DG, Professor Ndi Okereke, used to say, that you have not lost money, you have only lost value. So you only lose money, when you have sold. So the market is a long-term market, and for as such, the investors will still have a lot of recovery after now. So, but we're going to be seeing this kind of thing. We've seen the Osha index drop below 50,000 basis points, and we may see further drop. But it is not anything that should cause panic for the investors, because definitely we're going to have a rebound again when things look good, especially when the politicking and all of those other things begin to take a good direction.
Yeah, we just hope it won't take too long for us to get back the value, and not, even though we're not losing money. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Rotimi Fakayejo, stockbroker with NGX. We need to switch to London now.
You're welcome.
All right, Juliana, good morning. Good to have you. We had to steal a little bit of your time there. I hope you don't mind. But British Airways has halted sales of tickets on short-haul flights from Heathrow until the 8th of August. Is this about the staff shortage, or is there something else to this?
Good morning, Innie. Well, it's all about the staff shortages, and this has been something that was triggered from the Easter holidays, because there was just so much demand. Millions of British holiday makers were desperate to get away for some sun. For many people, they hadn't had a break in over 2 years, and unfortunately, the airports and the airlines just couldn't cope with the demand. This then led to Heathrow Airport, which is Britain's busiest, asking airlines to cut their capacity by 10% so they could stick within having only up to 100,000 passengers a day. And now British Airways, which is the largest airline carrier operating from Heathrow, they've gone a step further and really, I would say, probably dented plans for millions of people in this country by saying that for at least 1 week, they are no longer going to be selling any short-haul trips to Europe or anywhere within 3 hours. So this is obviously going to be a massive disappointment. We are right in the thrust of the summer holidays. Lots of parents decide to book their tickets late because they want to make sure they can get a good deal. But unfortunately, because of this story, it's very unlikely. And I believe that there are some other airlines that may follow suit and copy British Airways by deciding to cancel any short-haul flights.
Yeah, well, I hope you are not caught up in this, Juliana. I know you like to have fun with your kids. But, I mean, while everyone is talking about the high energy costs, the oil corporates are smiling. BP has declared profit 3 times its last year profit.
They are smiling, and once again they have called this trading update this morning as extraordinary, because it is quite embarrassing actually for these oil titans. BP, they have reported quarterly sales for the second quarter, so between April and June, profits of $8.5 billion. Now, this $8.5 billion is the highest quarterly profit they've had in over a decade. If you compare it to the second quarter of last year, I believe they only had about $3 billion. And in the beginning of this year, between January and March, they were reporting over $6 billion. And it comes at a time when we know in the UK we are going through a cost of living crisis. Energy bills rose in April. They're expected to rise again in the autumn, and a further increase is expected in January. Kicking and screaming, the former Chancellor did, legislate this windfall tax, which isn't going to kick in this year. And so it is quite shameless. Also, as well, BP have said that they're going to be buying back $3.5 billion worth of shares. So they're obviously doing exceptionally well at a time where so many people are doing exceptionally bad.
Yeah, Juliana, I just wish that windfall tax could just kick in now. I'm sure a lot of British would be happy about it. But, well, we'll watch and see, Juliana. Thank you so much. Talk to you at 1:30.
Thanks, Innie.
Let's head to the crypto space now, where Ladi is standing by. I don't know if the windfall tax will hit Ladi. Ladi, windfall tax in the crypto space?
No. And talking about profit, August is not looking so good. We're starting in the red, even with global equities market, and we're seeing that fear go deeper. At this point, we might actually get to extreme fear if it continues at this pace. Now, market cap $1.06 billion. That's down about 2.45% this morning. And we see volume traded in the total crypto space as Bitcoin plus the major altcoins and the microcaps up about 7.10%. Bitcoin dominance there, 41.53%. Been ranging between that 41 and 43% range. Price of Bitcoin this morning, $22,901. Lost that $23,000 support that we've been watching for a while now. It's down 0.02%. Volume traded, $27.38 billion. Even though we saw that news about a whale buying about $3 billion worth of Bitcoin, we're not seeing that reflect yet. There must be OTC transactions at this point. Price of Ethereum, $1,588, up 0.03%. Volume traded, $18.14 billion. That's for the king of the altcoins at this point. It's lost that 1716 support that we've also been watching. Top alts by market cap, we see it's mixed. Mixed color, we're seeing that BNB, $277. We've seen volatility with Bitcoin. So once you see that, you know that the altcoins are going to follow suit at this point. And we're seeing BNB holding on marginally there, 0.06%. Cardano, 49 cents, down about 0.05%. We see eCash there. What's the biggest mover yesterday? Was down this morning, down about 4.38%. And we see XRP there, also inching up by 0.13% at 37 cents. We're seeing XRP holding this 30-cent range now for a while. Let's bring in Solomon Amunde now, digital market analyst. Hello, Solomon. Great to have you.
Good morning, Ladi.
Yeah, so I saw information from Glassnode this morning, and they're saying that the recent Bitcoin network activity decline is signaling a longer bear market. That doesn't sound good.
Yes, it really doesn't sound good. And it's based on the characteristics of a bear market, which Glassnode report was actually highlighting. And this was based on an in-depth analysis of on-chain activities that has been happening on the Bitcoin network. And it's been very, very low. It's actually kind of like modeling and reflecting what we saw happen in 2019 bear market and also 2018 bear market. It's almost the same with what we see or what we saw in 2018 bear market. And what is this all about? Basically, active dropping, clearing fees, daily trading fees. It's actually dropping so much. A brief comparison is looking at last year. Last year, Bitcoin all-time high, which was around April, around $65K. The daily trading fees was around 200 BTC. But as at 2 days ago, that 1st of July, which was on a Saturday, or Sunday rather, we saw a daily trading fees at around 13.6 BTC. So you can see that the number of transactions daily on the Bitcoin network has drastically dumped. And this is actually very, very crazy because it's above an 80% crash in daily transaction volume and also transaction cost on the Bitcoin network. And this is a major characteristic for a bear market. And let's not forget to active addresses have also dropped drastically. I mean, if we had over 10,000 active addresses before, right now we have way below that on the Bitcoin network. So this is basically what that report was highlighting from Glassnode.
Talking about that active addresses, could it be because maybe most traders are just holding or hodling, at this point, as you guys like to call it?
Yeah. Basically, most persons right now are not really taking profits, and most persons right now too are refusing to spend their BTC. Thus, we have more of hodlers. The network is now hodlers dominated. That's just what is happening.
And it'll be interesting to see, Bitcoin used for daily transactions, at some point. Then we'll see that activity actually up.
Exactly.
But looking at the market now, we saw a couple of gains, in July. Most altcoins, a couple of them went about 200%. When we saw Bitcoin actually rise. But for you, what altcoins actually stood out?
Yeah, for me, within the past 2 weeks, I would say we saw Lido Finance make some huge gains. I mean, Lido Finance did almost 300% return, and I strongly believe that was because it is one of the top 3 or top 4 DeFi platforms out there, and it's holding a total value locked of over $5 billion. So people saw this and they decided to actually start investing in the token because it was very much undervalued for a project holding over a $5 billion total value locked. And that pumped the price within a space of about 5 days to almost 250 to 300% increase. And since then, it's still maintaining that. So you wouldn't really call it a pump and dump. It's still very much valuable, even after the 200 to 300% price increase. So I would say that's one project that really stood out. A few other projects like Wing Finance also did almost a 5x, 500%, and Bond also did about a 500%. But these other ones, they crashed afterwards. Wing Finance saw a high of almost $50 and retraced down to about $12. And Bond also did a similar thing from about 20 plus to below $7.
Well, talk about a pump and dump there. But traders were excited, about July, even global equities traders. But August is starting out quite red. What are you seeing going forward in August?
Okay, yeah. For August, I would say August should end in green. Why? Because we've had so much red, and also because Bitcoin has actually proven that it can be able to sustain the 20K support level. And we saw how long we tried to retest the resistance at $24K. We spent almost a week, all through last week, we're trying to break above $24K, but we haven't yet gotten that much volume and momentum to be able to do that. So basically, I expect August for us to see a slight retracement to the range of $20K and make a move for about $24K again. So I'm expecting us to see at least $26K this August.
26,000. All right, but you still see downside. All right, Solomon, thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, Laddie.
All right, let's flip over to the top 5 gainers. We see just Chile's token there, the fan token, just a double-digit gainer this morning, and a couple of other tokens looking green this morning. So it's not looking so bad, but we're seeing a couple of sell-offs, talking about Bitcoin and altcoins.
Yeah, seeing a bit of sell-off, but I guess we'll wait to the end and see if Solomon's prophecy.
Yeah, for August. That'll be interesting to see.
Will come to pass. Thank you so much, Laddie.
Thank you.
That's it on the program. Thank you so much for being a part of this second day in the month of August and for the week. We'll do it again tomorrow, God's grace. 1:30, Laddie will be here for Business Incorporated. To join us then, I'm Amy John McQuine. Enjoy the rest of your day.